Okay. Hello and welcome to this edition with suitable early 70s accompaniment music. We've leadered up this client film. Multicolored leader such as this is so shrunken it's not useful for our purposes, so we have to remove it. We can restore it back again. I wind it up and put it inside the client's empty reel, and we can return it to them. So this is our leader, and of course the splicing, the perfs are away from you to match the projector and match the rank if you were standing in front of the rank. But in order to splice, you have to flip over both sides.
So you have to induce like a little half kink in it?
Just to make the splice, and then you'll return it to normal as you go. And so that muscle memory will immediately be imprinted upon you. Two kinds of punches. One punch, which is what you would see in a ticket punch, and that's for the center of the frame, and that's for picture. So I'm going to do that here, punching it up so that you can see. Now you can see there's a hole there in the center. But since the soundtrack's on the edge, you will not hear that. So we have to do a second punch there on the edge using a smaller punch. So there's the 1-2 punch. And because we've now taken off, more than half of the actual structure of the film, in order to not lose strength, we then want to lay a splice over it to kind of strengthen it. And then to do the second half, you flip it over, and there's two ways of doing it. There's two ways of doing it. I've gone back and forth as which is the best way. I just twirl the splicer around 180 degrees away from you, but there's other ways of doing it. Okay, so now here's a splice, and that we do it on the Cine Post leader, because if you peel this off correctly, this is ready for the next sound film, either from Phil Hopkins or somewhere else. This customer leader is the beginning of the print, so the fact that it's clear, I go ahead and ink 16 millimeter. The frame is between the perfs. Super 8, the frame is in the middle of the perfs. Should you need it, there's a diagram here to show you that. You can get an insert shot of that later. And that, of course, comes from the wonderful Super 8 filmmaking book by Lenny Lipton. I need to scan mine. I'm thinking, considering how much that goes for on the eBay market. Actually, I don't need the physical book, but it's still kind of nice to flip through it. All right, thumb and fourth finger. Every bit of film has to ride between your thumb and forefinger.
So before we go on, you've labeled this leader with the real number.
Yes.
So that as that goes by in the gate, we can identify it.
Exactly. There you go. Reel 2. You know what? Ooh, I made the assumption that was reel 2. Okay, this is actually reel 3. So always good to triple check things. So how are we going to do this? Lots of ways of doing it. Clipping out the film would be one way. This is actually reel 3, so we're going 1, 3, and 2. Okay, so thumb and forefinger, light touch. Because this happens for a long period of time, I use this as kind of a resting place. And these have a drive mechanism so that they will freewheel here. If you're pulled out, if you push them in, they engage. So that's how you do that. Otherwise, you'd be taken for a little Ferris wheel ride there if you didn't. So here you go. And what you're looking for anything out of the ordinary, and you're feeling for things out of the ordinary. So looking here, this has been pre-prepped by somebody probably on Phil's team. What you're looking for is the absence of damage. These are fairly well-made splices. These are relatively new.
So for every splice, do you want to check the perfs like that?
Not for every one, but for the start. In other words, the first few on the roll, I do. These are my scissors, by the way. They have some in there, but they're much larger. And other people have other philosophies. Some don't check them at all, and off we go. But at least to start off the reel. And the other thing I like to do with a loop, normally it's sitting right here. Where did it go? Well, I got mine here, is to check to make sure in this orientation, if you can have a recognizable picture, the up is to the right. And somebody's coming in from the side, so you can take a look there. You want to make sure that up is to the right.
Okay, yeah, it's
Yeah.
faded, but that does look
It
to be
is.
the case.
That's right. But depending on the film, you can be like shooting into a water surface and it be inverted. So, that's not a tried and true. That can be. All right. Because this is a print, whew, there is more likely to be damage at the beginning and the ends of reels than anywhere else. And so what I did is I felt this torn perf. There's a torn perf right here. And I'm going to fix it. And the way I do that is to take the film and put it down this little overhang of tape ready to make the next splice. As I put it right there so it doesn't show up in the picture area. Trying to do that as much as possible. The Denig film from 1927 did have some edge damage, but I tried to leave, because the picture was in such good shape, I tried to leave the picture area without splices going across that didn't really need to be there.
So if it's just a bad perf, you tape it on one side, re-punch it. You don't need to, it's only like on a splice that you need to redo the whole thing?
Correct. So in this case, what I'm going to do is, using my scissors, Alfred scissors, wasn't quite as, and magnifier. I have I've just wrapped the splicing tape around the purse, but not tried to intrude too much into the picture area. If you do it really well, 35 is much easier to do that way. You can not intrude into the picture at all. And so then punch it, and there you go. This also works for 8mm, but you have to remember to punch it twice because there's twice as many perfs. So there is a patch.
So what, you punch it, move it one frame down, punch again, so
Yes.
you get, okay.
Yes, and then that constitutes a valid splice. You want to punch, because if you don't, then when it'll ride up on the sprocket as it goes through the rank,
Right.
and the picture will hop. All right, so now I'm feeling along, and I don't feel any. There was one you could hear it as well as feel it, and sometimes there are perfs that are torn only in one direction.
Okay.
So you might be tempted, as some employees were, to just fix it if it was in the forward direction. But if John or myself has to back up, then it'll get caught in the wet system.
Right.
With suitably bad results. But sometimes the prints are in really good shape. You can sit there and crank through the whole thing and not have to stop. And it's like, oh, this is marvelous. You do, however, after a while, you have to kind of walk your thumb and forefingers around, because if you stay too much in one place, you'll get not a paper cut, but a plastic cut. And they hurt just as much. So, and you'll learn to do that as well. Okay. So given that the first roll had the same kind of characteristics, and this is reel 3, I'm going to predict that reel 2 is also going to have some damage near the beginnings. This movie probably, as a 16, was either run on television, as a television print, and or at, like a student theater or something like that could run 16. There was a time period when they ran 16s on aircraft, and even 8mm on aircraft for a while, which is kind of interesting.
Classic.
Yes. And I went a little too far with that, so I'm going to peel it back a little bit. And just like any physical activity, the more you do it, it gets to be quite automatic. And you're just on the lookout for things that will cause problems for telecine. Anything in particular that will snag on the wet system must be addressed.
So basically, if I feel it on my fingers as they
Yes.
go by, then it will. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, there are exceptions to that might be, you can let them go, but at this early stage, I would say don't. because it's just like it doesn't matter how many times you're right, it's the one time that you're wrong that can cause damage to the film, as well as potentially damage to the equipment. So, and about this kind of pace is pretty good. If you get going too fast, the danger of you cutting yourself goes up dramatically.
And danger of missing something.
Exactly. Now, I did feel something go by, but it seemed to be just a burr on the film and not a break in the film. After a while, you'll be able to, as you polish your safe cracker fingertip sensitivities or edges, you'll be able to feel that. So this one went across. I do it over here to give me enough time to catch it as it slows down. And here was this one. Yeah, there was one. So here, take a look. It's this area right here. There's two diagonal cuts, right there and right there.
So you make the diagonal cuts when you repair a splice?
I didn't.
Is that just how it was damaged?
That's how it was damaged. This doesn't look like a splice, because it doesn't go into the picture area. Okay. It just looks like it caught. You can have debris, you can have dirt. It's really important to clean whatever it is touches the film, because all kinds of damage can take place. Certain kinds of damage can be because the can was dropped. And if you want to take a look at that, that's the kind of thing that you're looking for. You're never going to see that going by, it's because you're going to feel it.
But you'll feel it.
You'll feel it, and that's what is the crucial clue.
So when you do that type of repair, do you tape on both sides?
Yes. Well, I've been taping on both sides by doing this. All right, this is going to require some manipulation, so I'm going to actually use this razor blade and this cute little holster. This reminds me of positioning decals in my model building days, because we used to do that. All right, so now you see that the 16 millimeter tape covers both diagonal breaks, but it just comes up too, but doesn't intrude into the picture area.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what I'm going to do is pull this a little bit taut, and I'm going to cut. I'll cut it from this side so the camera can see it. I'm going to cut.
Rather than use the razor on the splicer?
Well, that's right. Well, see, the razor on the splicer is going to cut right at the edge of the metal plate. And what I want is a little bit of extra so that it will wrap around.
Oh, and it'll attach to itself.
Attach to itself on the back side. And
then you can trim it.
That's correct. Okay. And in this case, I'd like to punch first, because that tells me what I have left to trim. So now the perf is punched. Ooh, and a little bit of stuck on there. Okay. And that feels much better. Give a feel across there. I should have let you feel the first one. I'll let you. Okay.
Yeah.
That's up above the person. Now,
so you just have to repunch the hole?
Yeah. Now try doing it on the edges.
Okay.
Okay. And I did punch the perf out just now before offering that to you, so you see it comes through from the scissor just fine. There, one just went by. All right, and then
so that looks like a splice.
A splice that's already been made, and it looks relatively new.
Yeah. So
one from years ago would be it could be yellowed or crinkly or gummy and all that kind of stuff.
So would you retape that?
Well, let's see. I just felt
I don't necessarily feel a break, but I did feel the tape go by.
Right, exactly. And so sometimes you just look at them and go, "Oh, this one's all right." You see, it's not at an angle,
right?
So it's not extending beyond the edges of the film. This one is actually in pretty good shape. So that one you can just look at. Just want to put eyes on it, and then you can keep going.
Looks like it's starting to get a little sticky.
Okay. Do you feel the stickiness primarily on the edge, or you?
I just feel it as it's coming off the reel, or maybe that's just because I'm cranking it slow.
Yes, there'll be a moment where the stiction kind of lets go, and you're into more of a free movement.
It seems. Oh, there's a splice. Let's see what we got. Ooh, yeah, that one. I don't know if you can see from here. That one looks like it's a little bit diagonally offset.
This is a cement splice as opposed to what we've seen up to now, which have been tape splices. It's a pretty good cement splice. It doesn't have all the defects that it can have, and which means makes it brittle. So let me demonstrate that if you do a slight twist, don't go crazy, because of course you will break it. That's good. The thing that's not good about it is the fact that the original break is still visible there, so this is going to be a little bit of a white flash. But in the totality of things, trying to remake it and removing 1 or 2 frames will probably cause more problems. There'll be a jump in the audio and a jump in the picture. Okay. So I actually
better to leave it as
better
is.
to leave it as is, and maybe some very talented video artist type can paint it out somewhere downstream in the post-production process. So how's that?
Cool.
Here's another one I felt bump, and it's to the splice. These are like grease pencil marks. Either that or scratches. Yep, there's scratches. Somebody scratched this in order to mark it. Very bad idea. Emulsion, the picture carrying side is towards you on a print. It's away from you on camera originals, such as we get with home movies. It's important to note that and just be aware of where's the emulsion. Yep.
So is it similar to, like, on a slide, you can tell the emulsion layer by kind of angling it towards the light and see how it reflects?
It usually, the base is the more polished, sharpest, brightest side, and the emulsion has usually a duller look to it, because the topography of it, based on the complexity of the signal of the picture, will make it appear kind of rough.
That's another very similar scratch.
Yes. Yeah, it is. I think, sad to say, that they probably, you're never supposed to do that. You're never supposed to do that. We're to mark places that needed to be spliced.
Oh.
I don't know if there was anyone in their
So it's like folding down the corner of a page of a book.
Bibliophiles would just, like, their teeth would start to grit like that, because you don't want to do something that the audience is going to have to see. Now, in this case, the splice was not made like this. It was made slightly like this.
Ooh.
My finger's not symmetrical.
But because it's cement, you would have to lose.
But here's something we can do. We can either do it with these scissors or with the razor blade. And let's do it with the razor blade, since you won't have the scissors when I'm not here. You can actually run the razor blade along the edge, and you can take off ever so slight amount, and you can essentially sand it.
Split it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. You don't want to necessarily do this, because that's going to try to cut it.
Right.
You want to use what we in model making used to call a trailing blade, and that is much less likely. In fact, it's impossible for it to catch, and you're creating just a little bit of ADZ, and adds, like in woodworking, that kind of friction. So there you go. Now it's nice. It will go through. Yes, you can still feel it, but it's substantially less than what was there before.
Oh, so all you need to do is sand it down. You don't need to redo it?
Correct, because the picture may move slightly left to right, but again, trying to totally remake it, you're going to lose 2 frames, and
right.
So
that'll throw off your sync.
That's right. So the net of it, what we're trying to do is not the best, but the least worst, as one of my British clients used to say. All right, so here's another one of those. Feel it, and you'll feel that they're not symmetrical from the left to the right.
Oh yeah.
But you'll notice that the side closest to you seems to have more of a impression, but if that's going forward. Now going reverse, you'll feel the side away from you has greater, and that's what tells you that they're offset from each other. There are occasions where if the film starts to curl across its width, we have that kind of shrinkage that you do actually need to be touching the film.
So I want to be coming from this way.
That's right.
Okay. And I want to go until I'm not getting that little clack.
No, it can just be about 4 to 6 of the passes.
Okay.
And then sweep it and feel it. You're primarily going by feel in this case, even though it's a visual medium.
And I want it to be totally smooth, or just an improvement?
A noticeable improvement The goal being that it doesn't catch in the fabric of the wet system.
Okay. Do you want to feel that?
Mm-hmm. Yes. This one here could take about 4 more
Okay.
scrapes.
And I'm going the same direction?
Right to left.
Okay.
Yeah, because left to right feels pretty smooth. So right to left in this case. And you'll start to generate a little bit of powder as you take off probably 128th of the inch of the film, and that tells you that you're doing it about right. So see, and that one will go through without minding.
Cool.
So that is our objective. We do want it to look good, but we also
want it to run good.
We want it to run good.
It can't look good if it doesn't run good.
Exactly. And having a dump on the floor is a really bad thing to have happen. This one is right on the borderline. This is a good example. Go ahead and feel this one, right to left and left to right, and kind of put that in your mind in terms of calibration. Okay. And do you notice how it feels? Do you notice the edge that's towards you, your thumb in this case, feels about, I would say, half the amplitude of pop that the previous one did? You're kind of catching on one edge, but you're not catching on it as deeply as the previous splice which we worked on. So this one I would say we could let go and would not have to scrape it to. So again, we're trying to balance doing things, Library of Congress perfection, but coming off of that and trying to get something that is workable to get the client what it is they need, and us not spending as much time as we could. Now that I felt felt like a tape splice. Oh, all right, perfect example. This is one, you might want to get this too. You notice how this tape splice appears?
It looks like a combo of tape and cement.
It's very well.
Or is that just dirty tape?
It could be dirty tape. You just see how it has a yellowed appearance?
Yeah.
That is
bad adhesive.
Yes. The adhesive is broken down.
Further.
And the yellowing indicates, in all likelihood, that were we to twist it, it would let go. So that's a good example of one in captivity to try to remediate.
Okay.
Well, I don't know that they punched that out at all, because the perfs appear solid. Yeah, they technically were punched out. Okay.
Just not very well.
Not very well. See, but the trouble is with this is how it's crackling. That is going to come apart. All right, so this is one where, there
we go.
It came apart, so it is coming apart. It's coming off because it no longer has enough strength to hold. So we have to do that, and we're going to have to clean the ends of the film. Now, so far we haven't covered that yet. There's a couple of ways of doing it, but John's preferred method is to use this pink sponge and to go to the 4K room.
Get some film renew?
And not film renew in this case, believe it or not, mineral spirits. Since the last thing I transferred was on Thursday. All right, so splash a little bit in the bottom, like that. If we had the machine on and we're going to transfer a bunch of stuff, we would have more fluid than that. But take the edge here and just touch it, and you notice how it wicks up a certain amount. I'll give it another one for good measure. But that's what you want. You want this amount of liquid. The goal here is try to repair this break while losing as little frames as possible, and in fact maybe not losing any. So in this case, all right, so here's the film is in without a twist. I'm going to put it down here, and I'm going to push my finger down. I'm going to run it across this part of the sponge, flip it over, and run it over across this one. So now I've saturated both sides. You see they're nice and wet, and I can touch it. I can feel that the adhesive layers are getting smaller. Now it's getting more smooth like it was when it was original a piece of film. Then would you like to do the same thing in the other direction? Go ahead and try it with that. Okay. And in your case, of course, you'd be going to the left. And then turn the film over and do the other side.
Oh yeah, wow, it's wild. Like you can basically feel the goop dissolving.
Exactly. So, and then as you finish that, you have to kind of prepare your area. Here is, John likes to reserve this little area here for the wet sponge. My grandmother used to say when you were baking, you'd have a wet bowl and a dry bowl, and you wouldn't bring the two of them together until you were ready to mix them in the oven. So don't have any of the dry cloths anywhere near this because they will affect each other. Is to find dry end and do it. You hear the squeak?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And you hear this squeak.
Do you ever do like multiple passes?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes it is
Yeah, because I
necessary.
can still see some residue over on this side.
That's right. Yes, indeed. All right. So you see that, and then compare that with the other end. For really persistent ones, you can use alcohol, which is here.
Okay.
Or perchlorate, which is, I think, the bottle bottomed out. So I think in the machine area between the two ranks is the bottle of perc. All right, so once those are dry, and also I do reflections here to make sure that it is, there'll be a little bit of, but here's the thing. The people's eyes are going to be drawn toward the break in the film. They're not going to be looking at the edges of the frame. Okay, well, here's, turn it over so the perfs are towards you. So you bring both of them this way. Here's the little clips that hold it in place. Mm-hmm. On the left-hand side, there's a micrometer. You see how I can change the exact...
Oh, yeah, so you can get it lined up.
Yeah, just like in a biology class on a microscope stage. All right, and then you want to pull across, push down on this bar so it provides some back tension. And there we go. And that's in place. Punch.
Side one.
Side one. And that's very nice as we...
Yeah, that looks infinitely better.
Yeah, so it is a marked improvement over what we had just before. Okay. And number 2. So we've now made the movie-going experience better in just a few moments. Felt something go by, but it just felt... Occasionally you'll feel some roughness on the edge of the film, and you look and look and look, and you won't see anything.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the changes in the accuracy of the slitting during the manufacturing process. There can be occasionally a little temporary roughness that is not a flaw. It's just a characteristic of it. So far, so good. This is really fantastic. And again, I'm going to walk it a little bit so I don't start to get cut there. Also, this is about the speed you want to go. If you go faster than this, if you do feel something, by the time you chase it, it's going to be wound up there. And
you have to hunt for it.
That's right. And also the chance of you and then spilling this side of it here. I didn't go over it, but that's shiny screw on top of the rewind is the back tension. The more you screw it down, the more back tension it is. And you want just a little bit of back tension, but not too much. The one here on the right has been ground down, so it is no longer useful. So that's why when we rewind from right to left, John likes using a cloth to push against the reel to provide some resistance. And the fact that it's been so smooth past the first few minutes of this tells me this probably was a TV station print. It was probably run that way. You're more likely to encounter damage at the very beginnings of the reel and also at the end. Okay, so there it came off of there.
So now we need to remove the bad leader.
The bad leader goes away. The muscle memory I found that works the best is to always flip over the top, so the perfs always go up and above and over that. So have that muscle memory developed, and you literally won't think about it.
Okay. So get that lined up.
Yes. Now this is where it might be a little bit wacky because this yellow leader is so shrunken, and either really bright colors, bright red, bright blue, bright yellow, bright orange. It was done in the 70s, and it just shrunk so much that it may not actually register there at the end of that clear leader properly.
Okay.
With another piece of leader that we're going to add. And to your left with the pencil sticking out of it is some cine post leader.
This? Oh, this?
Yes, that right there. And the reason that reel and its cousins there in 8 and Super 8 and 35 even is that they are pre-cut to lengths that will fit on the telecine. Little short ends to go between spliced up reels are on the wall to the left, taped up. But the full lengths, and by the way, your hand span mine is 5 feet. 2 hand spans is how much leader and head leader and tail and trailer you want on those rolls to get on and get off the rank without flapping out. So that's why we use that.
Any trick to getting that to hold?
Yes. Well, first of all, what you do is, since you finish cutting, is go ahead before you lay it down here and bring the blade down so that you won't accidentally double cut it. Secondly, you see this little index mark here? That is actually where you want to bring the 2 pieces, one to the left, one to the right of that little index mark. Okay, and then here are these little hold downs that then fly into place, and they hold it in place for you.
Cool. Go with that. Give it a little bit of tension. Okay. Oh, those.
And right, that's the other way of doing it, which is equally valid, and that is to put a twist in the film, leave the splicer in its.
Oh, so that was at the point where you had turned the splicer around last time.
And I have done it both ways and said which one is the least amount of trouble or the most amount, or the fastest or whatever, and there's a little more film handling, so if you're in the midst of a roll and you got active picture, there's a little more chance of scratching it that way, which is why I've kind of settled on just flipping the splicer around. All right, congratulations, you made your first reverse splice.
Yeah, good.
The audience won't see this one, but but we know it needs to be. Now
that's structurally sound.
Yes, it is. It is. One way, and this is later on down the road. If you come across a splice and you want to test it, the way is to test it like this.
Okay.
Test it twisting.
So if
as well as visually.
If it folds along the tape, but it's still structurally sound, that's okay?
It folds a little bit. What you don't want is for it to fold like a door swinging.
Okay.
Because that indicates that even though visually it looks all right, mechanically it's essentially failed. And it's because it's going to make a lot of twists going through the rank.
Right.
Unlike a camera, unlike a film printer in a lab, that device puts more strain on the film, which is, people were like, oh, this is my projector just fine. It's like, well, you're not on a projector. So I'm just doing it this way. I mean, the official way would be to take off this roll and to put put this on, but I'm being lazy at the moment. So don't take that one as gospel. But all right, so this is ready to go. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taken this off. We're going to rewind it. So go ahead and
So now at this point we have to rewind.
You have to rewind it. Okay. Yes. John points out, and he's quite right, that you don't necessarily want to rewind it on the rank. The rank is really good for pulling forward. It's not really good for rewinding in reverse. It does do it, but it's not as good as a hand wind. There you go. These are keyed. Some rolls are not. Some reels are not, depending on the era. So we have to have, if you deal with 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter will look like that most of the time, square or square keyed, or something else. But square and square keyed. Super 8. Super 8 looks like this right here, whereas a Super 8 roll is right here. Super 8 they enlarged it, so we have to have these shaft adapters to go on there. Don't lose these. If they are obtainium, they are expensive. So they go in this little cubby hole right here in the main rewind. All right, so on the other side, you want a rubber, and you want this spacer, and then with the rubber side facing in, you want this keeper, like that, and that provides enough tension. That holds it tight. You may notice that these rewinds are not straight. they are offset, and they're offset for for a deliberate reason. Offset this way. You don't want the film to, as each subsequent wind is wound up, to be here and then here, here and then here, here and then here, because the reels have to be slightly larger than the film in order to accommodate it. So what John did is he offset that reel toward the wall so that it always will brush on this edge. Why this edge? Because that's the edge that has the perfs on it.
Oh.
And that's the edge away from the picture. So it makes for a better wind, and it makes it less likely to see the
so it's sort of
the image.
It normals the perfs over to that side, essentially.
Yes, that's correct. So I pull this out because I like to rest my wrist here, and I engage. I push this in, and I start. Also, I loosen this tension a little bit more. I'm applying some tension here, and off we go. And there's a saying in the space business that if you're out on an EVA, don't start going faster than you're going to want to brake and slow down yourself. If you get going really fast, that's wonderful, but you'll have to be able, with full control, without losing it, and if you lose control, film starts going everywhere like in a Bugs Bunny cartoon. So having a good measured pace, like about this, is pretty good. 35 millimeter film, of course, this same speed and pace will require more oomph, so you will get a workout, an upper body workout doing this. But you want a nice pace like this, and it will make the film, and you see how I can't point to it, but you see how it's rubbing on that edge that's away from me, but it's consistent, and that is the objective, because if we do this right, once we get to the end, you'll be able to wrap your knuckles on the film pack, and it'll be like you're knocking on a block of wood. It will be very, very consistent, and that's excellent for the rank for any device, but particularly for the rank. It appreciates that kind of thing. If, as you're going along, as I did in the film where it was popping, and notice that is residual adhesive that's still stuck there and is causing the winds to stick as they come off of there. That's where I came up with the idea of using the bipack film to alleviate that, because that unsticking, when it goes to the rank, will cause a vertical pop in the picture, and that has to be addressed. So this is very well behaved film now. It's red faded condition notwithstanding. This film is in good shape to transfer. Now I'm not going to I'm going to kind of speed up now, because it's not going to go on the rank. It's going to go on the Magnatech to have sound transfer. So, and that's much more forgiving of this, because it's a fully sprocketed drive. The rank does not use a sprocket to drive. It uses the sprocket to count frames. The drive comes from the capstan and pinch roller. There you go. And then walk it off. There you go. And then for the tie down, for the hold down tape, pull off a little bit, and we like to put a small seam. We like to fold it over a little bit and have this be a nice little pull tab.
Yeah.
But you want to do it on the side that has the film, because you want to be able to peel it off and have this come off in your hand and have the film pull away. Because if it's the other way around, then you got to go fish it off of the side that you're going to try to mount on the rank. But you see how nice and consistent that is?
Yeah.
It's like it's a solid piece of cellulose, and instead of multiple winds together. Now let's see. This nail here, John punches a hole, and in the work order jacket, 895 Hopkins, and I'm just going to use an abbreviation for this. Who killed? And it's R3. And it's about what? 1,200 feet. Unfortunately, this reel has got its scale pretty much off of there. Yeah, maybe not, maybe about 1,000 feet. Yeah, I can't see one. Anyway, it's my guess is about 1,000 feet, but we're going to say it's 16 millimeter optical and whoever does it, I'm going to put my name here. Normally we do a footage. I'm going to say about 1,000 feet. Okay, so that I can go put in there on the table. So if Myron is chomping at the bit to transfer something, he can.
All right.
The order would be different. We would do this one, sound second instead of sound first. So there you go. Yeah, I had to change it out because you're holding his reel. So
yes.
In this case, I'm just going to wind it up head and tail, one inside the other, and we'll put it in the box and make sure to give it back to him so he'll get back what he sent in.